Kanishka bombing. News X's Kanishka Files campaign reopened the shoddy probe files, exposed Canada's massive investigative failure, and kept the pressure alive. Now, following our campaign, the Indian Parliament honored the 329 victims, and now Canada has officially acknowledged that Khalistani terrorists based in Canada carried out the deadliest aviation terror attack in history. The big question now is, will Canada finally reopen the Kanishka bombing probe with honesty and seriousness? I'm now joined in the discussion by Sanjay Lazar, who's the author, analyst and kin of one of the Kanishka bombing victims. I also have with me in the discussion Ambassador Suresh Goyal, former diplomat. So thank you all for joining us. Mr. Lazar, thank you for giving us your time. Firstly, how do you react to Canada's first admission of Khalistani role in this tragedy that we saw in 1985?
Thank you, Kriti, for having me in your show. And ironically, I was in Ireland at the memorial just 2 days ago. I'm in Paris at the moment. I did meet CSIS and RCMP officers there. It is a big relief for us who have all along held that it was the Khalistani terrorists. All the evidence pointed in that direction. As you know, I lost my entire family in that bombing, and I've been a strong advocate and a petitioner before the Canadian courts over the last 40 years, also before the John Major Commission. And we've always held that, all the evidence pointed to the involvement of the Khalistani Babbar Khalsa and the three people who had come up for trial. It was tragic that so many witnesses were killed during that trial, and they got scot-free. But it's a big step, and I'm grateful that they finally acknowledged. I do hope that they take the next step and take a giant leap and try and bring the last few people who are still alive to justice. So we'd get closure in what is the world's worst aviation bombing. Thank you, Kriti.
Right. Stay on with me. I have a few more questions for you. 41 years have now passed since the bombing. Do you feel that your family member has been given any justice, not just yours, but all the other victims that you speak for today?
Kriti, no, definitely not. And I have long since campaigned in Canada, in Ireland, and in India. In India, first of all, for a memorial to commemorate the world's worst aviation terrorist act. And secondly, for justice, because we have seen blatant misuse and abuse in the court system, blatant, mishandling of evidence, of witnesses. So definitely not. You do realize not a single person has actually been convicted for the murders. Rayat was convicted for making the bomb after Tokyo Narita bombing. So effectively, we really not got justice. We are looking for closure, me as well as all the other family members. And, I travel the world speaking about this, advocating against terrorism. And I hope we do get closure, sooner rather than later.
Right. Yes, Ambassador Goyal also with us. In fact, Ambassador Goyal, now that the first admission has come, of course, it's a good first welcome step on part of Canada under Mark Carney. But would you now demand that Canada reopen the Kanishka investigation?
Thank you very much, Kriti. I must first admire and appreciate the courage shown by the families of those who died in that very unfortunate and terrible act of terrorism. Particularly Mr. Sanjay Lazar, who has come here on the show and who is expressing an opinion. And I think more than anything, I admire his optimism that the justice will take place and that this is the first step in direction of the justice. Kriti, I would like to be as courageously optimistic as Mr. Lazar is, but given the record of the Canadian government, 41 years, to basically just to admit that yes, this was an act of terrorism. It's a long time, very long time, 41 years. And particularly when one person has been convicted of making the bomb which was planted actually on the flight. What took them so long? Therefore, my sense is that yes, it's one step at a time, one step has been taken. even if it is after 41 years. The good thing is that I have hope in the present Canadian government, who are more understanding of the cause of India and the government of India, and who understand now the that terrible tragedy that terrorism can bring upon people very often. So I'm hopeful that after this, maybe other steps will not take such a long time, but they are going to be difficult steps. Given the record of Canada, given the influence, I would say, in the terrorist related, the Babbar Khalsa and the other Sikh groups exercise in the Canadian politics, they are going to be difficult steps, but I'm optimistic that they will soon follow after this first.
Right. Mr. Nazar, 2 years ago, News X also did an investigation on the bombing, and we spoke to you too. Since then, Indian Parliament has honoured the victims, our minister visited the memorial, and now Canada has accepted the role of Khalistanis in the bombing. Are you now finally a little bit hopeful that justice is near?
Well, I must acknowledge NewsX's role, and I've already said this number of times on television when I've appeared on your channel. 2-3 years ago, you all started this campaign, and under various, hosts, I have appeared. The Kanishka files has been, something of a legend. You've gone into everything from, the Indian reports to the John Major report to the trial to everything. So hats off to you guys, and hats off to the, largely the Indian media that has kept this issue alive. Yes, of course, the Indian government has noticed it. Last year, if you remember, was the 40th anniversary. The Prime Minister sent a group of 7 members of parliament and MLAs and prominent political leaders led by Hardeep Singh Puri ji, who is a cabinet minister, and they promised justice. The Canadians sent their Minister of Public Security, who came again this year, and promised to do more to help with the memorial as well as the investigation. RCMP officials did speak, saying that there are still, the task force, Air India task force is still open and alive and functioning in Canada and Vancouver. So they are still investigating this. They are still following leads, and they are tracking the last few people who are involved in this. So I'm hopeful that something will happen, given that the direction of the Canadian government has changed so radically.
Yeah.
We saw what happened in Trudeau's government, and now we see how Prime Minister Mark Carney has changed direction.
Yeah.
We also see that the friendship between India and Canada has now reached, in fact, an all-time high of the last 45 years.
Yeah.
They had broken down in the aftermath of Mrs. Gandhi's request for Talvinder Singh Parmar's extradition. Then after Operation Blue Star and the Air India Kanishka bombing, it was tattered, came up to Trudeau, and it went into the dustbin of history. Today, it's come back again, and I thank the ambassador for his kind words, and I'd also like to point out the Indian ambassador in Ireland. His strong words at the memorial were a salve for many of our families' wounds. That India will not stand by and do trade without settling terrorism issues, and that's very, very important. The Indian government has to put its foot down, and it has. Unfortunately, in the previous 35 years, we didn't see that kind of resolve from the Indian government. We are seeing it in the last few years. And I thank the government and, of course, the media, who's kept it so strongly alive in people's minds and memories and hearts.
Right. Ambassador, now Inderjeet Singh Riyat, he served 30 years, but he is out again. 329 lives have gone. They're never coming back. What's reason that Inderjeet and his accomplices, they should not be arrested again? Any reason for that?
Priti, if I were Canadian government, I would have done it by now. But the action lies in the hands of the Canadian government, and therefore all I can do is continue to press them to take the action that they should. But without saying what their compulsions are, but every government will act in their own manner, and therefore rather than telling them what they should not be doing, what they should be doing, I will continue to press my case with them really. If I were the government of India, I would continue to press, and I will continue to hope that given the state of good relations that now exists between the two governments, they will be sensitive to our own concerns in this matter. And they will be, more than our concerns, that they will be sensitive to the feeling of the families, those for the families of the victims of the flood, those who are still waiting for the closure of the case. So I do hope that the government of Canada will show some sensitivity and some consideration for the families and the relations with the government of India.
Right. Well, Ambassador, thank you very much for speaking to us. Mr.
Thank you.
Lazar, it was an honor to have you once again on NewsX and join us. And with that, viewers, we move ahead. Now, viewers, news coming in from Venezuela. Terrifying visuals have emerged